Hi everyone, my name is Ken Eula with Peak Scale Legal, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit today about creativity. And what I mean by that is creativity in growing your brand, creativity in defending your cases. And one of the things that I noticed in growing a business is that people are very boring, right? People want to stay inside the lines. They think, okay, I'm going to do what everybody else did or do what everybody else is doing, and that's how I'm going to be successful. And what we found over the course of doing this over a very long period of time is that staying inside the lines and doing things the way that you think they're supposed to be done is not the way that you become successful in any endeavor in life, or specifically with growing a law firm. Let me give you guys a couple of examples. For example, one, let's talk a little bit about defending cases, right? And the part of growing your firm that is important is obviously having good case results. And let's talk about an issue, for example, violation of probation, right? And going through the law for a very long period of time, I was told on a violation of probation, you just have to accept. Person's going to get arrested, they're going to go to jail, and once they're in jail, then you can file bond motions and all of this sort of stuff. And I would always ask people, for example, I would talk to people in the office that were board certified, things like that. They said, no, you have to wait. You have to go and you have to wait until that bond hits, and they get arrested, and then you can argue that bond issue, right? And I always thought it was ridiculous. I said, this is ridiculous. Let's think outside the box. Let's try to do something a little bit creative. So I would file motions to quash warrants. I would file motions to issue a court date instead of an actual arrest warrant. And surprisingly, many judges would actually consider and be open to these types of hearings. And in the interim, you could work out resolutions with the prosecutor, work out resolutions with the judge. And in many instances, the case could be resolved on a violation of probation where a person never got arrested. I did these religiously, and clients, fell in love with, I don't have to go to jail all the time if I violate probation. There's alternatives that I haven't thought about. I got tons of referrals off of this sort of business. I had a ton of really successful results. And you had a lot of snobby lawyers out there that really didn't know what they were talking about, saying, you can't do that. That's not how the law works, and blah, 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 blah. But we did it. We were successful doing it. We still do it. And you have a lot of happy clients out there that give you a lot of good word of mouth. So that's one example of practicing law creatively, right? Not within lines, not within a certain parameter of this is how we have to do things. Let's talk a little bit about another idea, the creativity in growth of your brand, right? How you build. Now, you look around and you see people, when we were, at the public defender's office, we saw people go out and they would, put up billboards, and they would do this and they would do that. They would go to all the networking events. And I said to myself, I said, yeah, none of them are really that successful. I mean, there's one guy in Orlando. He's really well known, and it's why are we following this template? Right? People know him. People, he goes to like these sort of like things to meet people, and you got a lot of people that did stuff like that. And I always said to myself, like, these are not where our clients are. Why am I going to go to some happy hour with 100 other criminal defense lawyers, or why am I going to put up a couple of billboards when nobody calls off of that stuff? Nobody goes and makes clients meeting people at happy hour. So we decided to kind of go in an entirely different direction, right? For criminal law, there's a lot more different avenues where our clients actually were, that weren't going to happy hour like all the other lawyers were doing, that weren't posting billboards all over town, that weren't doing the stuff that you saw every other generic lawyer doing. And by doing things a little bit outside the box, we were able to accomplish a lot more. People didn't like it, but we were able to do it. And we grew a lot faster than everybody else because we were doing things creatively, outside the box, and the way that they probably should have been doing in the first place, but it wasn't in line with the status quo with how most lawyers thought. So one of the strategies myself and Daryl will talk to you guys about when growing your brand and growing your firm is what are things that are a little bit outside the box, things that are creative, things that we can do that other people haven't even thought about, whether it's defending cases, whether it's your marketing strategies, whether it's who to market to, how to market to them. What are your best avenues for growth? And I always think that being a little bit creative and a little bit different usually goes a long way.